Sam, of course, I want to talk to you a little bit, and the reason why I think I called you last night regarding the NFL and the agreement that's come down, and I couldn't think of a better guy to talk to about it other than yourself. It seems to me, listening to all of the guys that you've played with and broadcast with and coached with, that it seems to be sort of a bittersweet thing. It seems to be that, yes, okay, there's some money coming down the pike right now, but, there's all kinds of other question marks being raised. Do you see it the same way, or is this all good as far as you're concerned?
Well, yeah, no, I think, it depends on who you talk to as to whether this is all good or not good or bittersweet. But remember, this is going to be paid over a period of really 20 years. First half of that's $765 million. Is that the number? I think that's it. Is going to be paid in the first 3 years, as half of it will be paid. And then the other half will be paid over the next 17 years.
Okay.
And it's really I heard somebody I believe on ESPN this morning call it a win-win, but really more of a win for the owners, because this class action suit did not start as a class action. It started as a number of torts, suits by players who went out and hired an agent, got together as a retired organization of football players to share information, and had multiple suits pending. And that's when I think his name is Lynn Phillips, the mediator. Now remember, a mediation is not like arbitration. Mediation is not binding. And I assume that both sides have signed on the dotted line and agreed to this, because an arbitrator, once he makes a decision, it's like a judgment. It's firm. But mediation, both sides have to agree to his order. But I think the players, $170,000 will be it. There were a lot of players who were asking for a lot more than that, because their claim to injuries was a lot more in their mind. And there were some maybe that weren't asking for that much. My guess is that most of them were asking for at least that much. Therefore, a lot of them didn't get what they first went after with their own private lawyer.
Sam, you spent some time very close to Toronto, up here in Buffalo. I know you've got family that played in the Canadian Football League. Completely different medical system between Canada and the States. In the States, you better have your ass covered with some kind of insurance, because they don't have the sort of health care plan that we have here in Canada, which is kind of an in-between the state system and what they have in Britain, where you get all coverage no matter how much money you have. But it seems to me that you could spend $178,000 before you get your pajamas on when you go into the hospital down there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, though not coverage, this is settlement money. So they're going to get money, and they can go out with $170,000 and buy, $2 million worth of coverage. So it multiplies a little bit there, but the thing the players, I think, are saying to themselves today is, okay, this happened relatively quick once it went to mediation, just a couple of months in discussion there. But it hadn't been quick to a lot of the players who started years ago filing lawsuits. Some of the bigger names, Tony Dorsett and Jim McMahon, who played for Chicago. There were, I think, 10 Hall of Famers that were in the class action suit once that was put together. And it was a federal judge, not a state judge or any other lower court. It was a federal judge that ordered this mediation, and both sides agreed to it. But Brian, I go back to when I played back in I started professional football really in 1966 in the minor leagues in West Virginia, and then with the Cincinnati Bengals in 1968. And it finished up there with the Buffalo Bills in 76, after the 76 season. And I wore something called a suspension helmet in those days. It didn't have any...
fairly obvious.
Yeah, right. You can tell by the way I talk. It was just a band that went around the top of your head, and then it had different contact points that suspended your head and your brain and your skull inside that protective piece of plastic. Yeah. And now, of course, they've got all kinds of cushions and where the impact is distributed among the entire side of the helmet, therefore not as much impact on any one point. All those kind of progress has been made. Riddell is sitting on the sidelines now wondering if there will be further actions brought against manufacturers of equipment
You betcha.
that were sold to the National Football League or to the players. But one thing, though, Brian, that gets me that really does, that the players have made a statement. Now, I'm a former player, so I'm being very objective about this. But as one of the players said that he needed this information as more than the money, or as much as the money, needed the mediation so that he could decide whether he wanted to play the game or not. Well, in all my years as a player and a coach, I never heard a player say, well, before I sign the contract, let me see, all the potential injuries that might happen and the treatment I'm going to get and all that. And then I'll decide if I'll sign and play. No, here's $1 million to sign your name and $1 million, to play every year for 5 years. I never heard anybody turn it down. Players want to play the game. They do go into it with a certain understanding of the risk of injury. They come out of it understanding that they might have been hurt, whether they got hurt or not. And I think what the lawsuit is just the cumulative effect post-game, post-career, where the players realize, gee, this wasn't just something that would affect me while I was playing. It's affecting my entire life. And in that regard, it's a good judgment. In the regard of the motive to do it, I don't know that ever existed. Players played because they wanted to play, they enjoyed playing, and there was a lot of money involved.
As I understand it, Sam, you'll correct me, the NFL doesn't have to take responsibility for what they allegedly did.
Yeah, that's why it's probably a bigger win for ownership and the league itself, because this puts a cap on a lot of things in terms of the financial obligations that they're going to have in the future and that they have now, which is, that's why you have the mediation. You both agree. This is not something that the judge heard and renders a verdict, and one side says, I got robbed, the other side says, hooray. Both sides agreed to the settlement. So fairness or unfairness can't be claimed by either side.
Are you part of this suit, Sam?
No, I did not. I had 2 concussions as a player. Both of them happened on the way to work. So I could hardly claim it, but I just didn't feel like I had a claim. And I think a lot of players, and there were some that may have put their name on the dotted line, saying, "Shoot, if they're giving out money, I'll sign." Well, I don't believe in that one. So I'm not part of it. I was grateful that I got to be a part of the NFL. It gave me a great start in life. It gave me a chance to be a coach. It gave me a chance to be around a game I loved. And I've got no regrets, and I probably have a little bit of aches and pains that I wouldn't have had I not chosen pro football as a profession, but it was worth it to me. I did not sustain, though, those injuries that some of the guys have had that have really been debilitating to them.